For this first practice, what you will need is a couple blocks or books that might look about this size, and then maybe a towel or a blanket to sit up on. We will go through proper hand and feet alignment in this video. We'll practice a couple standing poses, and it's really just going to be a full class. It won't be as long as like a 60-minute studio class, but I just want to provide you with little nuggets of yoga to get you started and then to help you feel confident either walking into a studio or taking one of my hatha or vinyasa classes. So to start, let's come to a seat. And what does a seat look like for you? Well, if your hips are really tight, like when I started yoga, this was my cross-legged seat, and that might be yours as well. And if that's the case, we want to get your hips higher than your knees. So perhaps you will need to grab a block or a stack of books to sit on, or maybe just folding up a blanket would be enough. So I'm going to show you the side view. So I'm going to start with a block. It's early in the morning. Sit my hips up again. Books are just fine. And then cross legs. So you can see that my knees now are going to be lower than my hips. So you could still be here, or perhaps you're able to get your heels a little bit closer to your body if you give yourself some height. What this also does is bring the natural curve back into our lumbar spine. So alignment. I'm going to start with sitting on a block, cross-legged. If that doesn't feel right for you, you can bend your knees and just take your shins down. Maybe this feels better. So pick something that works for you and pick something that feels good so that you can just sit here for, 7 rounds of breath. So heavy in your sits bones, low back pulls in and lifts up. So spine is nice and tall. So it's erect, but it's not rigid. Lift your armpits up to your ears and slide the head of the arm bones, that's these guys, back. So you feel your shoulder blades, your scapula slide down your back, and you have more space here for your chest. You've got this beautiful curve in the low back. Rest your hands down and close your eyes. And if closing your eyes is not comfortable for you, keep them open and take the gaze off the tip of your nose. Just soft gaze. And part of yoga is being aware and connecting to how your body is feeling. So let's first just take our mind's eye inside and just notice. Do you feel particularly tight anywhere? Do you feel pretty good? Are you rested? Are you tired? We're not trying to change any of that, just noticing. No judgment. Notice if your shoulders start to slouch forward, can you peel the head of the arm bones back? A few more rounds of breath. Relax the space between your eyebrows. Relax your jaw. One more inhale. And exhale, release out your mouth. Open your eyes. Good, and then we'll come to our first wrist-bearing pose, which will be what we call tabletop or hands and knees. So we want to talk about the 4 corners of your hand. That's going to be here underneath the pinky finger, and then these 2 spots right at the heel of the hand. This guy, this first finger, is kind of the most important one. It's the one that tends to peel up off your mat first. So I'll remind you to keep this first knuckle rooted down. So take your hands on your mat about shoulder width apart. If you like, you can turn your hands out a little bit toward the long edge of your mat. And then notice, are your hands up here or are they all the way back? So try to have the placement right underneath the shoulders. You could even have the hands just a little bit in front of the shoulders. Spread the fingers wide, equal space in between each finger. And then roll your hands kind of inward so that you are able to press down into your first knuckle. And then the pinky one, and the two spots at the heel of the hand, and then grip your mat. Press down your fingertips like you have $100 bills underneath each fingertip, and I'm trying to grab them. So it's like this grip should feel nice and secure. Toes are tucked with your feet, and you're pressing down into the toes. My hips are aligned over my knees, so you're not here and you're not here. We've just got this nice steady alignment, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Take your gaze forward and down. So once again, alignment, we don't want the neck cranking. We're just taking the gaze forward in front of our mat a little bit. Now lift your armpits up to your ears and try to bring your scapula together, kind of melt your heart down. And then slide the scapula down your back. So it should feel nice and firm. The shoulder joint is packed. Good. Now untuck your toes, walk your hands back toward your thighs, and then just shake out your wrists. And we'll do it again. Placing the hands down, shoulder width distance apart. Really press down into your first knuckle. Tuck your toes. And we'll start with cat-cow, which is poses you'll probably find in most yoga classes. So for cow pose, lift your tailbone up, really bring an arch into your back. Take your gaze forward and you kind of draw the scapula down the spine. Think about your belly dropping here and your chest lifting. And now the gaze is forward, so the face is lifted. Now when you go into cat, press down into your first knuckle. Round your spine so your tailbone starts to point down toward your mat. And then your gaze goes between your legs or at your belly. And then think about a really angry cat, stretching all the skin on your back and the little muscles between your spine. And then let's take that again. Cow. So we lift the tailbone, we lift the chest, look forward. And then press down into your first finger, round your spine, let your head hang, look at your belly. Let's do that a couple more times. So you just move freely here. I want you to connect to your body. That's the hardest part. When I first tried yoga, I was like, what is this body? How do I move this? I felt super awkward. So we're just practicing moving here, undulating our spine. Good. Now come back to your neutral spine, which just means where we started. You're going to untuck your toes, bring your big toes together, and take your knees apart. Sit your hips back. We're going to move to child's pose. So your child's pose could be right here. Okay, your hips might stop you. You might have really tight hamstrings. And if that's the case, that's fine. Maybe you have room to just bring your forearms down and let your head hang. So this could be your child's pose today. If you have more space, you could think, oh, wow, I could actually sit my hips back down. This doesn't cause me any pain. I don't feel any numbness or tingling or sharp shooting pain. So I'm going to give this a shot. Maybe your hands reach forward and your forehead comes down. Maybe not. So a block could come in handy here, or your books. You might bring your forehead down to a block. Or you might bring your block between your heels so that your hips have something high to sit on. So find your child's pose. Bring your head down. Remember, I've been practicing for 15 years. And then take your head side to side. But I started just like you. Take a couple rounds of breath here. Bring your attention to your belly. Let your belly hang between your thighs. And as you exhale, the belly button draws up toward your spine. A couple more rounds of breath. Good. Now press down into your hands. Press your fingertips into the mat. Hold on to those $100 bills and then pull yourself back up to hands and knees. Ditch your block. Okay, so now we'll make our way into downward dog, a pose you've probably heard of a million times. So for this, just to start, walk your hands forward of the shoulders just a touch. Tuck your toes and then scoop your belly up to your spine. Now lift your hips up. Keep a deep bend in your knees the whole time. So your dog could look like this. What I want you to do is step your feet back a little bit because we tend to all be really short in our down dog and we want a longer stance. Once you're here, keep your knees bent and lift your tailbone up to the sky. So bring that beautiful arch back into your low back. Now, if you have the space, you can slowly let your heels come down toward your mat. Press down into that first knuckle and your thumb and act as if you're pressing your mat forward. Bring your ears between your upper arms and 2 more rounds of breath. You can even take your feet without moving them. Try to separate your mat between your feet by taking your feet and acting as if they're pulling to the outer edges of your mat. You'll feel your outer hips engaged. Keep your knees bent, tailbone lifted. Good. Now bend your knees really deep. Take your gaze forward and then take little steps all the way up to the top of the mat. And then you might go, oh my God, really tight hamstrings. Can't touch my toes. No big deal. Grab your blocks or your books. You're going to take your hands on your blocks. Once again, shoulders line up over your wrists. Totally fine to let your fingers hang over the sides of your blocks. Pick the height that works for you. Feet are hips width distance apart. And then we want to hinge at hips in our fold. And what I mean by that is if I was hinging somewhere else besides my hip, I might look like really rounded just because I'm trying to get my fingertips down to the mat, and we don't want that. So take a little bend in your knees. Press your pubic bone back between your thighs. Lift your little tailbone up. Good. Now keep this hinge at your hips. Scoop your belly up to your spine and fold. So once again, doesn't matter if you touch your toes, doesn't matter if your knees bend. Maybe they can bend so much that your fingertips touch down on your mat or on your blocks. And then let your neck be soft, head heavy, so you're gazing between your legs. And maybe take your head, shake it no. Nod yes. Now to really feel that stretch in the hammies, you'll try to straighten your legs a little bit, even if that means your hands are on blocks. Keep your tailbone lifted up. So this is Uttanasana, forward fold. Place your hands on your shins and lift the spine halfway. So they're not on the knees, they're on the shins or on the thighs. Take your gaze forward, and this is a spinal extension, so think about the spine lengthening from tailbone through the crown of your head. Inhale, exhale. Keeping that extended spine, walk your hands up your body. And now you're standing. If you're a little bit dizzy, stay here and just take a moment. So 4 corners of the feet. We've got 1, 2 at the ball of the foot, and then 2 right here at the heel. So those are your 4 corners. So think about pressing down into those 4 corners, and then just like we did with the fingertips, kind of grip the mat with your toes so that your inner arches lift up. So you should feel pretty stable here. Hips are still aligned over the ankles, and you're pressing the tops of your thighs back. So again, kind of sticking your booty out. We tend to do this a lot in our posture now, so we want to correct that. So standing down into all 4 corners of your feet, lift your armpits up to your ears, head to arm bones, draw back, scapula down the spine, and then your palms face into your body. This is called Tadasana. Gaze forward. Tap into your breath, maybe close your eyes. And just notice how your body feels. So now we'll just move with breath a little bit, keeping your blocks handy there in case you are one of those people like I was in the beginning that wasn't touching my toes. We just want to bring the floor up to you so that we don't have any injuries in our practice. So inhale, simply reach your arms up, maybe look up, and then exhale, hinge at your hips. You might even take your hands to your hip creases, press them back, nice extended spine, and fold. Bring your hands down to those blocks or your mat. Bend your knees a little bit, press your pubic bone back between the thighs, lift your tailbone, and let your neck be soft, head heavy. Walk your hands forward or onto the blocks. We come into that kind of lift halfway position. Look forward, engage the muscles on the back by sliding the scapula down toward your waistline. And then fold. Walk your hands up your shins. Keep your spine nice and long and come up to standing. Let's do that twice more. Inhale, reach your arms up, look up. Exhale, fold. So hinging at hips, pressing tops of thighs back. And come into your Uttanasana, forward fold. Now inhale, walk your hands forward, potentially to your blocks. Look forward, extend your spine. And exhale, refold. Maybe a little bend in the knees, lift your tailbone up. Feel that nice juicy stretch in the backs of your legs. Walk your hands up your legs and come up to standing. Lift armpits up to ears, head to arm bones back. Tops of thighs, press back. Inhale, reach arms up, look up. Exhale, hinge at hips, fold. Press the tops of your thighs back. Hands come to blocks or your mat. Little bend in the knees. Press pubic bone back between the legs. Lift tailbone. Let your neck be soft, head heavy. Walk your hands forward, look forward. And fold again. Good. Walk your hands up your legs and come to standing. Excellent work. Lift armpits up to ears, head to arm bones back. Inhale, breath. Exhale, breath. So now we'll come into a little standing balance. So you'll take the weight into your right leg. So all 4 corners of your right foot are pressing down. Firm your glutes. So act as if you're like squeezing your butt cheeks, especially on the right side. Hands come to your hips. We want to try to keep the hips points forward, like you have headlights on your hips and they're shining forward. You can come to the ball of your left foot and bend your left knee. Once again, hands at hips, squeeze your right buttocks, tops of thighs, press back. Now, pressing down into the 4 corners of your right foot and then kind of hugging your mat with your toes to lift your inner arch. Slowly start to lift the left knee, and maybe it's a couple times and you're like, whoa, that's okay. Let's focus our gaze ahead of us at something that's not moving, lifting your left knee, engaging your right buttocks, and then take the toes on the lifted foot up toward your knee. If you want to start, have your foot on a block. Totally fine. Squeezing buttocks. Knee is extended out from the hip. And then maybe you want to give it a try. You could take your arms up just for fun. Belly button pulls back to spine. Right butt cheeks engaged. Gaze straight ahead. Soften your shoulders down. One more inhale. And exhale, bring the left foot down. Shake it out. Good. Then we'll switch sides. Shift the weight to the left leg. Press down into all four corners of the left foot. Grip your mat with your toes. Lift your inner arch. And then just kind of organically expand through the whole foot. Engage left butt cheeks. Headlights on hips. Face forward. Hands to hips. Bend right knee. And play with starting to lift the knee up. Totally okay if you lose your balance. Keep your gaze forward and lift your right knee. Flex the right foot and breathe. Notice if you're holding your breath here. Notice what your thoughts are telling you. Belly button draws to spine. Maybe arms reach up. If you come out of the pose, just come right back into it. Left leg firm, hugging muscle toward the bone. 2 more rounds of breath. And release. Nice work. Shake it out. Good. Inhale. Reach your arms up. Look up. Press the tops of your thighs back. Exhale, fold. All right, so you might take your blocks, just set them out in front of you. Bend your knees so deeply that your hands can come down on your mat. And then walk your feet back like you're setting up for a plank and bring your knees down. So here the hips are going to be ahead of the knees. Hands are still right underneath the shoulders. Scoop your belly up. Scoop your heart forward, take the gaze forward, and then notice what you're doing with your low back. Are you overarching it or are you tucking the tail? So think about pubic bone moving back between the thighs, lift the tail bone up a little bit, lift your belly to spine and breathe, look forward. And then you're gonna slowly make your way down to the mat. Maybe your elbows come out a little bit wide. Good. Untuck your toes and take your legs as wide as your mat. So we'll come into a back bend called Sphinx pose. On your forearms here, shoulders line up over elbows, spread fingers wide, press down into that first knuckle that we sometimes forget about, and then act as if you're peeling your heart through your shoulders. So this could feel really intense. If this feels like way too much of a back bend, try taking your legs apart if you haven't done that already, and maybe sliding your arms forward a little bit so that you're a little bit closer down to the ground. This could feel better. Now, lift your belly button up toward your spine, find some core engagement. Peel the head of the arm bones back and look forward. Maybe even down a little bit. And then if you want more, shoulders right over your elbows. Same principles in terms of opening up the chest so you could lift your armpits up toward your ears, melt your heart. And then draw the head of the arm bones back as you pull the chest through. Press down through your elbows without moving them. Try to slide them back toward the back of your mat a little bit. And breathe. Good. And then come down, crocodile. Elbows wide, stack your hands, bring your forehead down. And then maybe shimmy your hips a little side to side. Now slide your hands underneath your shoulders. And you could keep the elbows a little bit wide. Press up to tabletop where we began. So notice if your low back is talking to you. You've got some energy perhaps pooling around there or some big sensations. Sensation is good. Muscles working, awesome. Sharp shooting pain, big no-no. Tingling, also a no. So just start to notice if you have that in your practice. Don't push yourself too hard. Child's pose. Big toes come together. We've been here before. Knees wide. Press your hips back. Remember, they might be up here. You can always bring that block back and then rest your forehead down. That should feel like a nice low back release. Good. Press down into your first knuckle. Bring yourself on up to hands and knees. And then we're going to transition to down dog just because we want to keep that in our head. So you might walk your hands forward just a little bit of the shoulders, tuck your toes, and remember, lift up your hips. Your knees can stay bent. Likely need to walk your feet back a little bit. Knees bent, pubic bone presses back, tailbone lifts. You can take the gaze back between your legs or up to your belly. Maybe start to soften the heels down toward your mat and breathe. What's going on with your first finger? Press down into the knuckle. Bend your knees deeply, look forward. Little steps up to the top of your mat. Bend your knees and come down to a seat. Good, we're gonna come all the way down to our backs. And after any kind of back bend, we just want to do a little bit of core work to stabilize the low back. So to do some safe core work, you're rooted down here into your sits bones, but notice if your low back is planted down on your mat. We want to still take that same principle of pressing the pubic bone forward between the legs so I can actually slide my hand under and say hi to you. Think about like a cute little line of ladybugs under there, or even like a little tiny gerbil. And then from here, take your knees up to 90 degrees. You can hold the sides of your mat for leverage. Tuck your chin just a touch, and then gently press down into the back of your head. Now, slowly tap the right toes down and lift. And then the left. Notice if your low back is pressed down into your mat. We want to roll the pubic bone or sits bones forward a little bit. Keep the natural curve in the lumbar spine as we do our core work. So just alternating toe taps. If you want more, try both feet together and lift. Going nice and slow, controlled movement. We're going to do 5 more wherever you're at. 4, 3, 2, relax your jaw, smile, and 1. Good. Now place your feet down. Walk your heels back toward your glutes just a touch. You want your knees lined up over your ankles. And then you can walk your fingertips toward your heels. You're still pressing your pubic bone forward between your upper thighs. Now roll to the inner arches of your feet. Press down into your heels. Flare your toes and lift your hips. So not over lift, not hanging, but see if you can find this nice diagonal line from your sternum up to your knees. So from here, press down into all 4 corners of your feet To engage your hamstrings, those are the backs of your thighs, without moving your feet, you're pulling your heels toward your shoulders. That's gonna fire up the backs of the thighs. And then to fire up the outer hips, keep pressing down into your feet and act as if you're pulling your mat apart. Hello, outer hips. Good. Breathing. And then sits bones come down first. Very good. Knees draw into your chest. Now your low back is planted down. Take circles with the knees. And we'll just do a little stretch before our final pose. So take your feet down. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. And then flex the toes. You might decide this feels really intense and want to walk your left foot forward more. Or you've got your knee stacked over your ankle. You can take your right hand and press your right knee forward. If you have more space, keep your sits bones roll forward. Notice I still have my lumbar curve intact. You could even take one hand on your belly and keep the arm underneath your low back as you pick up the shape. Good. So you should feel more intensity there. You can remove the arm and then just draw the shape toward your chest, still wanting to take the right knee forward. Breathing, turning the corners of your mouth up, and bring it down. Unhook. Let's stay for a moment. Notice where you feel the energy pooling. And then switch sides. We do have a tighter side. This is mine, might be yours, so just be kind. It may not go as deep as the other side. Totally normal. All right, so starting with maybe out here, pressing your knee forward, flexing your foot of your lifted knee, and then deciding if you want a deeper, bigger stretch. To get there, use your breath. Inhale. Stay for the exhale. Notice if you're trying to really get that shape toward you, but your head is coming up, that's fine, but I don't want you cranking on your neck. So support the back of your head. Maybe press the left knee forward. Flare the toes, spread them wide. And then bring the foot down. Bring the other foot down. Good, and then we'll come into our final pose, Shavasana. Hopefully it's offered at the end of every yoga class that you take. It's the most important part of your practice. I'll tell you why when we get there. So take your legs wide. Let your feet just go out to the side. You don't want any muscle engagement here. We're gonna take this time to receive all that work. All right, take your arms out to the sides, palms face up. You do not have to be here on your mat. Go really wide. You could also take your arms up overhead. And then just move your head a little side to side. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. If not, soft gaze off the tip of your nose. Open your mouth a little bit. Let your jaw relax. Draw in and inhale through your nose. Exhale out your mouth. And just let gravity take hold here. No need to focus on breath. No need to focus on what your body is doing. We're just finding stillness here. As your mind wanders, bring your awareness back to your breath. Shavasana is known as the hardest pose. because we are to be still, and that can be really challenging. It's important to receive that hard work and to counter the hard work that we did. So adding a little yin, a little passive energy to that really active energy that we have. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Find a little movement in fingers and toes. And then take one knee in toward your chest, followed by the other. Rolling off to your right or left side, doesn't matter. Press your top hand into your mat to help bring yourself up to a seat. And once again, you can sit on your shins or prop your hips up on or your booty up on a block or a blanket. And rest your hands down, close your eyes. Take your palms together in front of your heart space, thumbs face your chest. You can tuck your chin just a touch. Notice how you feel now compared to when you started your practice. There are so many benefits to yoga. And the more you revisit the practice, the more that these benefits will benefit your body not only on your mat, but as you leave your mat, you'll take some of this yoga with you, some of this quietness, compassion. Inhale, breath. Exhale, breath. Thank you for being here today, for practicing, and I'll see you next time on your mat. Namaste.